Back here on the special NHL Live as we take a look at the Eastern Conference and this expanded postseason format. The top four teams will have a bye into what would be the normal first round. They will, however, play a round robin to determine those seeds 1 through 4, cue the Blues in Boston. As for the matchups of best of 5 play-in series, the Pens are going to take on the Canadiens. Both New York teams are in. The Rangers match up with the Canes. The Islanders get the Panthers. And then finally, it'll be the Maple Leafs against the Blue Jackets. Guys, let's start with the Pens and the Canadiens. So these two teams, biggest point differential between opponents. And what's interesting, considering what we learned tonight, is that both of these teams are still in the mix, technically, to land the number 1 overall pick and potentially draft Alexis Lafreniere. It's been an interesting night already. But let's focus on this series, because I think if you sense any uneasiness from fans in Pittsburgh, it's the fact that you've got a short series and you have to go against Carey Price in net. That being said, Sharpie, expectations for Pittsburgh here?
I think Pittsburgh's not looking past Montreal, but they've got their sights set on going on a deep playoff run. Now, this break couldn't have come at a better time for the Penguins. They were scuffling a little bit. I feel as if their veteran players, Crosby, Malkin, Letang, were gearing up for a big playoff run in April. Well, things have changed. Time settled down a little bit. Jake Gensel's had some time to heal. Jason Zucker, the acquired winger at the trade deadline, is going to feel a lot more comfortable in Pittsburgh. There's a lot of options up front. Let's not forget Patrick Marleau was added as a depth forward as well. They got 2 strong goaltenders and a core group that's been there and done that. And now Montreal's getting a second chance here making the playoffs. And if you've got Carey Price, you got to feel good about your chances in a short series.
Yeah, you're going to really rely on them, though. All the reasons that you just gave about the Penguins, their health being the number 1 reason. It's going to be a scary team coming at Carey Price, and Montreal is going to have to battle as a major underdog. They have the benefit of a shorter series, and that's where Carey Price can really step up his game and give the Canadiens a chance to beat out a Penguins team that I agree with you, Sharpie, I think is set and ready for a long playoff run, but they got to get past a pesky Montreal Canadiens team with Price in goal.
Mark Bergeron's basically said a lot of it's on Price, but it's not all on Price. Is it all on Price?
I think it is, Liam. I think that Montreal, as a team that works extremely hard, that's great news for them and can cause a lot of disruption in front of Carey Price and in front of the other net. But Carey Price is going to be extremely busy against a really talented Pittsburgh Penguins team.
Okay, go back to last year, Crosby and company. They were swept in the first round by the Islanders. The Islanders then, in turn, were swept by Carolina in the second round. Now you fast forward to this year. Rod Brind'Amour not exactly thrilled with this format, probably not thrilled with his opponent, considering the Rangers swept them during the regular season. Jonesy, because of that, and because of the way they finished, the Rangers are a very trendy pick here to take out the Canes. If you believe in the Canes, why should you?
Their work ethic, and we watched it last year. We wanted to write them off all season long, and before you knew it, they were battling through playoff round after playoff round. They are a team that plays the same way on a nightly basis, and that's got to make Rod Brind'Amour feel great. They've got talent. Sebastian Aho is a terrific player, racking up the points this year before the break, and Svechnikov continued to find ways to produce offensively. So they're dangerous in that regard, but they're going to have their hands full against this Rangers team. And big reason the Rangers are trending is this guy right here. Panarin was phenomenal during the regular season, MVP-type year. And Zibanejad, I think, and I've argued a couple of different times with Mike Milbury, that he is their most important player. So the Rangers have a lot going in the right direction, including Kreider's return, Sharpie.
Yeah, Zibanejad was really impressive to me, especially when the season was put on pause. It looked like he was going to challenge Alex Ovechkin, David Pastrnak, and Austin Matthews right up there for the goals scoring race. He was on fire, plays a good 200-foot game. Chris Kreider coming back as well. But to me, guys, there's a huge question mark in net, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. The Rangers have 3 goaltenders that I'm sure they'd feel comfortable starting: Lundqvist, Georgiev, and Shesterkin. Let's remember that Igor Shesterkin comes up from Hartford of the American Hockey League late in the season, kind of establishes himself as the guy that's going to get the bulk of the starts down the stretch. Now that we're in a playoff series, guys, I think the whole dynamic changes. I'm glad I'm not making a decision, but you've got the veteran there in Henrik Lundqvist, who has great numbers against the Carolina Hurricanes. But to me, if you're David Quinn and the New York Rangers coaching staff, you got to figure these guys out 1, 2, and 3. You better slot them, because there's a chance that you might need to see them in the playoffs, all 3 of them.
Yeah, some numbers we don't have on there. Henrik Lundqvist, 128 playoff games. The other guys, a combined 0. Jonesy, who would you start?
Shea Storkin would be starting in goal for me. I think he's their best goaltender. I would have Lundqvist backing up. If he faltered at all, I would have Lundqvist back in the goal, but I'd go with a guy that was terrific in the games that he played and a guy that the Rangers were leaning to as their not leaning, they were making him their number one netminder, and deservedly so.
All right, let's move on to the Islanders and the Panthers. We have a couple of coaches who have captured the cup. You have Barry Trotz, you have Joel Quenneville. Barry Trotz, he seems to love this format, says it's fantastic. There's parity in this game. It's going to be unpredictable. Sharpie, what else should Barry Trotz be happy about as he enters into this next round?
Well, he's going to test his style of play against a team in the Florida Panthers that has a very different one. Watching the Panthers play throughout the regular season, they're a team that I'm not sure if the coaching staff was excited about it, but they would trade chances with you, give a couple chances up defensively in order to counter. That's something that's going to have to change if you're playing against the New York Islanders and a Barry Trotz coach team. Look, I love Matt Barzal. He's the offensive force to this team. But the success of the New York Islanders are that they are a team-first, defensive-oriented group that really clogs up the neutral zone and slows down the transition of the opposition. That's the strength of the Florida Panthers. Look at Casey Cizikas getting in on the forecheck. He's usually centering that fourth line that we often see start periods, end periods, really shift the momentum. And a big veteran defender in Johnny Boychuk's going to be back. We know about that shot on the back end. We talk about Carey Price in Montreal. What about Sergei Bobrovsky? I think he's going to have a big series if they want to get by the New York Islanders.
Yeah, if you're trading chances, you better have a goaltender come up with huge saves. And Bobrovsky has done that in the past. He did it for a number of seasons in Columbus, where he won a couple of Vezina trophies, but he has not played that well with a team that does not play as well defensively like Columbus did in front of him. So Bobrovsky's an extremely talented netminder who did not look comfortable for much of the season. If he can find his form, that would go a long way in helping him, but they're going to have to defend better and give him a little help in front of him as well. Bobrovsky is an outstanding netminder that hasn't had a whole lot of help this season as well.
Finally, the last play-in series in the Eastern Conference. It's Bobrovsky's former team, Columbus Blue Jackets against Toronto. Jonesy, does this feel like skill against grit to you?
It does, but the Maple Leafs should have learned some valuable lessons over the last couple of playoff series losses that they had against the Boston Bruins. I think the Leafs are a much grittier team now. I think they have very good leadership, and it wouldn't shock me to see the Maple Leafs lift the Stanley Cup at the end of all this. It's going to be difficult. It's a great test to start with Columbus, but Columbus is not going to sneak up on the Toronto Maple Leafs after what they did to Tampa last year. Too much skill in that Maple Leafs lineup. Youth is on their side, and I think they're going to take advantage of that against Columbus that continues to work harder than anybody in the league.
Yeah, we know what to expect from this Columbus Blue Jackets team. It's Josh Anderson getting in people's faces. Seth Jones coming back. We know how important he is on the back end, along with his buddy Zach Werenski. Those guys are out there for half the game each, and they make such a difference in both ends of the ice. Look, Columbus is a team that's been injured all season long. The name tags have been replaced. It doesn't really matter who's in that lineup. The one constant thing about the Blue Jackets team is they're going to play hard, they're going to play fast, and they're going to work relentlessly throughout a playoff series. John Tortorella is going to do his job as far as motivating these guys in a playoff series. We remember what happened last year when they took on the Tampa Bay Lightning. This is an interesting series. I think it's much closer than people think. I like the Maple Leafs as well, but boy, this is a tough team to play against in the Columbus Blue Jackets.
All right, we know the matchups in the East. We still don't know where the top pick in the draft is headed. And up next, we're going to look to the West. The defending champs followed it up with a remarkable regular season. Can they pick up where they left off? And what's the most star-studded series?
Now he feeds the middle. Carlson, backhand score! Beautiful roof shot! Hat trick, Will Carlson! A shot off the crossbar! Rebound! And a diving save by Fleury! Rebound, score! It's Marchessault! It's an overtime winner! Drops it off from McKinnon into the circle. McKinnon down low with the shot. He scores! Good call. Trying to get through with the shot. He scores! The Avs have won! Blues come back the other way. They score!
They've had incredible win streaks this year. They've been dominant, and their team looks as good as ever.
We broke it down the East. Here's a look at the West when play resumes. You have St. Louis, Colorado, Vegas, and Dallas. They'll go round robin for the top 4 seeds. As for the play-in matchups, it's Oilers, Blackhawks, Coyotes against the Preds. Minnesota will match up against Vancouver, and Calgary will take on Winnipeg. Let's start with, let's face it, I think when this all came out, the sexiest matchup that we saw was that Chicago Blackhawks, Edmonton Oilers matchup. And now when you consider the idea that the loser of that is now thrown into the pool to potentially land the number 1 overall pick and maybe could add Alexis Lafreniere, great. Let's just make it a little bit more intriguing. Why don't we? It's one of those that stands out, jumps out at you on paper because, Sharpie, it feels like there's a chance that we could get postseason pond hockey. Do you see that?
I feel it's coming, and these are 2 teams that have star power in today's game. And you could look at the 4 stars of this series: Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid on one side, Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews, and all eyes are going to be on those 4 players. They make such a difference to their teams respectively. The seasons that McDavid and especially Leon Draisaitl had from start to finish were incredible, carrying the Edmonton Oilers on their backs to a playoff berth. Yes, they've gotten better defensively, but let's not kid ourselves. Those 2 players make a huge difference. And what are the Stanley Cup playoffs in Chicago without huge moments from this guy, Patrick Kane? Jonathan Toews had a great year as well. Jonesy, I'm looking at this series as being high scoring, back and forth, lots of offense. It'll be a fun one to watch.
Yes, it will. I want to work all those games, actually, because it will be tremendous hockey to watch. There will be a ton of goals. There's a ton of offensively gifted players. And I think Dave Tippett's a very good defensive-minded coach. He's had a lot of time to figure out some ways to slow down some of those guys in the Hawks uniform as well. So it should be a very interesting matchup, but a fun series to watch.
Let's move on to Arizona and Nashville. And when we discussed this before, this idea of guys with things to prove came up. Jonesy, who are you looking at when it comes to the Coyotes?
Well, Phil Kessel's proven it in Pittsburgh. He would go a long way in cementing his career by proving it with the Arizona Coyotes. Phil's done a great job whenever the playoffs have rolled around and was instrumental in helping the Penguins win a couple of Stanley Cups. Been relatively quiet in Arizona, but Rick Tocchet has always done a good job of unlocking Phil's game at the most opportune moments. So I look forward to watching him try to raise another Stanley Cup. It'd be a huge challenge with Arizona. Taylor Hall's the one guy, though, Sharpie's got a lot to prove and has a lot on the line being an unrestricted free agent at the end of all this.
Yeah, what an opportunity for Taylor Hall to rise his stock a little bit here in a play-in series. You mentioned Phil Kessel. He's been there, done that with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Well, Crosby and Malkin. Now he's got Taylor Hall and Clayton Keller, Connor Garland, those guys to try to make a playoff run. Look, Arizona's not a team that's going to wow you with star power. They've got some great talent. They're a team that relies on structure, defense first. They'll grind you. They'll come at you for an entire playoff series. Arizona's one of those teams that was fighting to make the playoffs at the end. Now they get a chance to have this play-in series. This will be a tight one, too.
Nashville's a team with a lot of talent and a roster loaded with guys who probably have something to prove here in the postseason, but there's also a big question in goal. You know, we talked about Lundqvist before, used to talking about him in the terms of Vezina and being a big-time postseason performer. You know what? Pekka Rinne, we used to talking about him in the Vezina conversation and being a postseason performer, but now it's between him and UC Saros, and you see the numbers during the season, they would tend to favor Saros, but there it is again. Career playoff starts, 89 for Pekka Rinne and none for Saros. So who would you go with? Best of 5 series, you feel like you have to make a big decision. You have to make the right decision right away. Jonesy, who would you start?
I would start Saros. I think a lot of it, if I was John Hynes, would depend on how both goaltenders look immediately. I think practice is going to be really important. I think they're going to have to show the head coach that they're ready to go. But Saros has been the better goaltender this year, and Pekka Rinne has not played well over the last couple of playoff series that he's performed in. So I would lean to the rookie early and then quickly get to Pekka Rinne if he falters. But that's the guy that I would go with.
And it's a nice luxury to have, I think, isn't it, guys, to have multiple options at the goaltender position, much like the New York Rangers. These teams, Nashville, New York, the coaching staff know the players. They know the goaltenders. A lot's going to be figured out in training camp. Who's looking like they deserve that start? It certainly looks like Saros took the number 1 job over down the stretch from Nashville, but with 89 starts to 0 in the playoffs, Pekka Rinne to UC Saros, I wouldn't fault the Nashville Predators if Pekka Rinne started game 1. I mean, there's a lot to work out. I like Pekka. He's had a lot of success against me in my career. UC Saros is the up-and-comer. You got two good options there, and we'll see how it all plays out.
Let's move on to the Wild against Vancouver. The Wild, a resilient team all season long. But, Jonesy, you believe Vancouver a very tough out in this situation. Why?
I think they're a really pesky team, and I think they have an outstanding goaltender in Jacob Markstrom, who's really developed into a top-notch netminder. Vancouver plays well in front of them. They've got young, talented players like Elias Pettersson and Brock Besser, who should be healthy and ready to go. They added Tyler Toffoli. They've got a very strong and gritty defensive core in front of them. And I think that there's a lot to like about Vancouver, including their grittiness, and that's something Minnesota's going to have to match up.
Much like Travis Green as a head coach when he played the game, head coach of the Vancouver Canucks, very gritty player, in your face. Vancouver resembles that attitude. And Minnesota, they found their way in the playoffs yet again with this core group. Zach Parise, Ryan Suter, Eric Staal. These are some older names, been around the NHL a long time, have done a lot in their individual careers. Perhaps this is the last time as a core group in Minnesota that they have a crack to have some success in the playoffs. They've been in the playoffs a ton, these guys, so it's a matter of time before they can win a few rounds. This is a close series, too. I like Markstrom in net. I like this young core of Vancouver. They're up and coming. They're an exciting team to watch. Another close series.
Other series in the West, obviously, is Calgary and Winnipeg. Ottawa, the only team from Canada to miss the playoffs, and they did not have a good night here at the draft lottery. Again, it's sort of a mystery to see who is going to get that top overall pick. It's one of the teams in the qualifying round that is going to lose in that play-in round. An interesting, different, unique draft lottery. Jonesy, your final thoughts on it?
Crazy. It's just absolutely crazy, but a lot to look forward to when those 16 qualifying teams go at it. Somebody who loses is going to be very happy a few weeks later. There's no doubt about that.
It certainly takes the sting, Liam, it certainly takes the sting out of losing that play-in series. If you're going to have a crack at that number one pick with all that's at stake, Alexis Lafreniere looks like the real deal. What a prize at number one.